guys, how's it going? I'm coming at you today here, February the 7th, 2020. I'm doing UFC 271 Adesanya versus Whittaker 2 fight breakdown and predictions, which is this Saturday, February 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for the prelims and 10 o'clock p.m. for the main card. So I'm going to get started with the prelims right away. So first in the welterweight division, we have Jeremiah Wells versus Mike Mathea, who is actually a kickboxer that trains with Israel Adesanya. So he'll be making his debut. He's 3-0, currently on a 3-fight win streak, and Jeremiah Wells is 9 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw, currently on a 3-fight win streak. So Mike Mathea is he has a kickboxing background, trains with City Kickboxing, which is out of New Zealand. He's only 3-0 in MMA, but he does have a kickboxing background, so it leads me to believe that he's probably a pretty good striker. That's also what I'm hearing kind of from what I've looked into media, looked into like some of his fights, is that he's a good striker. Jeremiah Wells, he actually just beat a really good UFC veteran in his last fight, Warley Alves. So he's currently on a 3-fight win streak as well, but he looked pretty good in that fight, and that's a a really tough opponent. So I think he's just gonna have a little too much experience. I think he's gonna be more well-rounded. So I think Jeremiah Wells is gonna get it done. I think he's probably gonna gas him out with using the clinch and the wrestling mixed with his striking, just his overall game. So I think he's going to tire out Mike Mathea and eventually probably get a knockout later in the fight, either round 2 or round 3. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next fight, 135 pounds bantamweights. So you got Douglas Silva de Andraj versus Sergey Morozov. So Douglas Silva de Andraj is 27 wins, 4 losses, so he's got a really good record. He's been fighting in the UFC for a long time. Sergey Morozov hasn't had as many fights in the UFC yet, but he also has a good record. He's 17 wins with 4 losses. This is going to be a really good fight. I think it'll be really competitive. I had a really hard time picking this one. I just think they're pretty evenly matched. Yeah, it's just a really tough fight to pick, but I'm going to go like 50-50 coin flip on this one, but I'm going to pick Douglas Silva de Andraj by decision. Okay, so on to the 185-pound middleweight division. I'm going to pick, so then we have Jacob Malcoon versus Aj Dobson. So Jacob Malcoon is currently on a 1-fight win streak, and he has 5 wins with 1 loss. Aj Dobson is 6-0. He's making his debut, I believe. I think, yeah, his last fight was in the Contender Series. He looked really good in that fight. It was a war. It was a 2-round war. He fought a guy that was undefeated, I believe, 6-0 as well at the time. He ended up finishing the guy in the first round. Actually, yeah, it was a first-round finish. Sorry, I apologize about that. But it was a complete war for that whole first round. He just went after it. And it's kind of hard for me to pick that fight because he looks so good in that fight. But Jacob Malcoon, I like his mindset. The reason why I'm picking him is he believes in the Mamba mindset, which is Kobe Bryant, how he always outworked his opponents or his competitors and everything, right? So he kind of has that mentality, which I like a lot. And his 1 loss was to Phil Haas, who was pretty good. He got knocked out from Phil Haas really quick, but he's a really powerful guy. So I was kind of leaning toward Aj Dobson because he's similar to Phil Haas in that sense, but he doesn't have the same experience. So I'm just leaning towards Jacob Malcoon. Or sorry, actually I picked Aj Dobson for that reason. I was going to pick Jacob Malcoon because of his because he has that Mamba mindset, but he fought a guy, Phil Haas, who just came in and knocked him out really quick. He had a lot of power, and I feel like Aj Dobson pretty much is the same as Phil Haas in that sense. So I'm picking Aj Dobson by KO. And I think it'll probably be pretty quick, to be honest. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next fight here, the 205-pound weight class, light heavyweights. We have Carlos Allberg versus Fabio Charon. So Carlos Allberg, he's 3-1, currently on a one loss streak, and he's from City Kickboxing as well. He trains with Israel Adesanya as well. So he's fighting Fabio Charon, who's 7-3, currently on a 2-loss streak. So for this one, I haven't seen Charon fight, but his last 2 losses were in the UFC. Both first-round finishes against pretty good guys, but they were like quick, right? Like they weren't second round or third round. He got finished pretty quick. I'm not saying that means necessarily he's gonna lose, but I just think Carlos Allberg, he has some kickboxing experience. Like he's actually had kickboxing fights as well. I think he's just going to be a little bit too much for Fabio Charon, and I think he's probably going to get a knockout. Maybe not as quick, maybe second or third round, but I predict knockout for Carlos Allberg in this one. All right, so then I'm going on to the next fight, 155-pound division, the lightweights. Alexander Hernandez versus Renato Moricano. Now, this is the first fight of the night that, like, this one's going to be a really good fight. Like, I just can tell by the two guys. Both guys bring it. Both guys go for finishes. Like, they're both killers. Renato Moricano used to fight at weight class down at 145, but he's moved up to lightweight a few fights back, I believe. Alexander Hernandez has always been a gamer. He loses to top guys. Renato Moricano, same thing, only loses to top guys, but Moycano has lost to top guys a weight class or 2 down, like guys like Jose Aldo, some other people I just can't think of right now, but Alexander Hernandez, he's lost to only gamers as well, and he's beat some pretty good guys too. So I'm going to pick Alexander Hernandez by decision in this one. I think it's going to be a really competitive fight, but I see him getting it done. Okay, so then on to the next fight, 135 pounds, bantamweights. So we got Ronnie Lawrence versus Mana Martinez. So Ronnie Lawrence is 7-1. He was a Contender Series guy. I believe he's had 1 fight so far in the UFC, maybe 2. But he won his fight on the Contender Series, and then his last fight he got a 3rd round finish as well in the UFC. Mana Martinez, same thing, Contender Series guy. He actually lost his fight on Contender Series, but he actually got signed to the UFC. I think maybe winning a fight after that, and then he just won a split decision. He's currently on a 3-fight win streak. Ronnie Lawrence is on a 4-fight win streak. So both these guys are kind of up and coming guys, not really well known yet, but I liked how Ronnie Lawrence looked in his fights, so I'm going to pick him by decision. Okay, so next, the 205-pound division, light heavyweights. We got William Knight. He's versus Maxim Grishin. So William Knight, he's 11-2 with currently on a 1-fight win streak. Maxim Grishin, 31 wins, 9 losses, and 2 draws. So a lot of fights, over 40 fights, and he's currently on a 1-loss streak as well. So he's on the 1-loss streak. William Knight's on a 1-win streak. So William Knight, he's really short and stocky for the weight class, but he has a lot of power. Maxim Grishin's more of a bigger guy. He just lost his 1 fight. His last fight he lost was to Dustin Jacoby, who was a really good kickboxer as well. And William Knight's, even though he's on a win streak right now, I see Maxim Grishin kind of getting it done just with the experience, and like the guys that he's lost to, I think are a little bit better than most of William Knight's competitors that he's faced so far. So I'm going to pick Maxim Grishin to win this one by decision. Okay, so then we're on to the 125-pound division, the flyweights. We have Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. So Alex Perez is 24 wins, 6 losses, with currently on a 1-fight loss streak. And Matt Schnell is 15 wins, 6 losses, currently on a 1-loss streak as well. Now, Alex Perez's loss is to Davison Figueiredo, the current champion at flyweight. And Matt Schnell's lost his a decision to Rogerio Bontorin, who's also a really good fighter. Not quite to Figueiredo's level yet, but Alex Perez got finished in the first round from Figueiredo, and Machinal lost a decision to Bontorin. So I think these guys are really evenly matched. However, I see Alex Perez getting it done. He just has a little more experience. He's a gamer. The only issue I had picking this one was that he's been off since late 2020, so almost a year and a half now, where Machinal's been more active as of late. And he's looked game, like he's looked pretty good in all of his fights. But I'm going to pick Alex Perez by decision for this one. Okay, so then we're on to the 125-pound female flyweight division. We have Roxanne Modafferi versus Casey O'Neill. Roxanne Modafferi is 25 wins, 19 losses, and Casey O'Neill is 8-0. She's undefeated. So Roxanne Modafferi is currently on a 2-loss streak. Casey O'Neill, her last fight was against Antonina Shevchenko, who's a great fighter, amazing striker, and she was able to get the fight to the ground and finish her by TKO ground and pound, I believe, which was really impressive to me. So Roxanne Modafferi, she's always a gamer. She has like over 40 fights, very tough, durable. Kind of later in her career for sure. Like she's a vet. She's had a lot more experience. But Casey O'Neill brings it, and she's not afraid to fight. Like she's a gamer. So for that reason, normally I like go towards the more experienced person, but for this one I'm actually gonna go with Casey O'Neill because she's really game and she goes for the finish. Like I like that a lot. So I'm gonna pick her by decision because Roxanne Modafferi is super durable. I think she'll be able to at least go to the scorecards, but I think she's gonna lose this fight for sure by decision. Okay, so on to the next fight, which is the prelim feature, which is the final prelim fight of the evening before the main card. So we're on to the heavyweight division, 265. So we got Andrei Arlovski versus Jared Vanderaa. Now, I don't know much about Jared Vanderaa, to be honest. May have had a couple fights in the UFC so far. Andrei Arlovski, I've watched him since UFC 51. Like this is going to be UFC 271. So I've been watching UFC forever. And I remember I was a huge Andrei Arlovski fan back in the day. Still am. He's just a lot older in his career now. It's pretty crazy. He's still fighting in the division, to be honest. And he's currently on a 2-fight win streak against pretty good guys. I think one was... I think his name's Carlos Phillips, some Brazilian guy who's pretty game. And it's pretty impressive he's still able to win his fights. He hasn't been getting any knockouts, but when he wins, he'll just win his fights by decision. He fights a lot smarter now. He doesn't rush in as much for KOs, which late in his career is probably the smart thing to do. So he's fighting Jared Vanderaa, who's on a 1-loss streak. But for this one, just experience in general, I see Andrei Arlovski getting it done. He has 32 wins and 20 losses. So even though people are like, oh, that's a lot of losses, well, he's been fighting at the highest level probably most of his fights. So he's going to have a lot of losses because he's only been fighting the best guys probably for the last 20 years, right? So he's a gamer. He's been winning a lot of fights by decision. Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Andrei Arlovski by decision for this one, to be honest. Okay, so then we're on to the main card, and this starts at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We're on to the first fight of the evening for the main card. It's 155 pounds, lightweights. So we have Nasrat Haqparast versus Bobby Green. Nasrat Haqparast is 13 wins, 4 losses, currently on a 1-loss streak. And Bobby Green is 28 wins, 12 losses, and 1 draw. And Bobby Green has been on, I think he's on a 4-fight win streak. So Bobby Green is been fighting pretty good lately. Haqparast is really tough. His losses are like decisions. Like he doesn't get finished. Very, very tough guy. Bobby Green, same thing. When he loses, it's decisions, right? He looked really good in his last fight against Ali Aquinta. That was 2 fights ago where he got a finish, and then his most recent fight he won another decision. But he's been super active lately, Bobby Green. I like his style. He's a good striker. Not afraid to throw down. So I'm going to pick, but I think it's going to be really competitive. I could see this fight going either way, to be honest, but I'm going to pick Bobby Green by decision. Okay, so now we're on to the next fight of the evening for the main card. It's 135-pound division bantamweights. So we have Kyler Phillips versus Marcelo Rojo. So Kyler Phillips is 9 wins, 2 losses, currently on a 1-loss streak. And Marcelo Rojo is 16 wins with 7 losses. So Marcelo Rojo, actually, this is his first fight at bantamweight. He was at 145 before. He had a war against Charles Jourdain, and he lost a third-round TKO, I believe. He's a gamer. He's a Mexican guy. He trains with Brandon Moreno. Really tough guy. Kyler Phillips is really good, too. He moves really, really well. He's pretty well-rounded. I like his movement a lot. He throws a lot of spinning kicks, which are really nice. Like, they're really crisp. It's a tough one because Marcelo's dropping to bantamweight, so it'll be interesting to see how he fights with the weight cut. I'm not sure how much weight he was cutting in the first place at 145. So for this one, I'm just because of the unknown of him not cutting weight before, and I know Kyler Phillips is a gamer. I'm going to pick Kyler Phillips by KO or TKO in this fight. Okay, so then on to the 185-pound middleweight division. We have Jared Cannoneer versus Derrick Brunson. This is going to be a great fight. This is potentially the number 1 contender fight for middleweights. So it's kind of nice that the middleweight championship fight's on the same card. The winner of this fight, if they make a statement, they could have a good case to fight for the title next against the winner of the main event, which is great to see. Jared Cannoneer is 14 wins, 5 losses, currently on a 1-fight win streak. And Derrick Brunson is 23 wins, 7 losses, currently on a 5-fight win streak. So even though Jared Cannoneer is only on a 1-fight win streak, he just beat Kelvin Gastelum. It was a tough fight for anybody. And then before that, he lost a decision to Robert Whittaker, who was fighting for the title. And actually in that fight, he fought Robert Whittaker. He got his arm broken in the first round, blocking a kick from Whittaker. And then he fought the rest of the 3 rounds and lost the decision. So, tough guy, for sure. You're not just going to get him out of there easily. Mentally a savage, not going to quit. Derrick Brunson, very well-rounded. His striking definitely his hole in his game for most of his career. He leaves his face open a lot, chin up in the air, hands down. So his striking's always kind of looked brutal, like to me personally. But he's cleaned it up a lot lately in his last few fights. He's been looking better with it, and he's been really getting back to his bread and butter, which is his wrestling game. His wrestling game is unreal. Like, he's really good at taking guys down, and there isn't a really good wrestler in the 185-pound division. It's actually one of the divisions where there's mostly strikers, like at the top, fighting for that belt. So it's kind of interesting to see the one guy bring something different in that division. Most other divisions, like, you have good wrestlers in all the divisions, but 185 is kind of the one lacking it. But Brunson seems to be going back to his roots and trying to exploit that on people, and it's been paying off for him. He's on that 5-fight win streak against good guys. So I mean, his last fight was against Darren Till. He beat him, finished him in the 3rd round. And Jared Cannoneer, like I said, his one win was against Gastelum, and then he lost to Whittaker. So for this one, though, it's a tough one to pick. I could see it going either way. Brunson's either going to be able to control him on the cage, wear him out, maybe get him to the ground and win the fight by decision, I think. Or Cannoneer's going to knock him out. Like, that's probably how it's going to go. So I'm going to pick Jared Cannoneer by knockout. I think the guy's a savage, and he's going to go for the kill. Okay, so then we're on to the co-main event of the evening. We have the 265-pound heavyweight division. So we got Derrick Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. Now, Derrick Lewis is a fan favorite, so is Tai Tuivasa. Like, depending on who you ask, just a lot of people like these guys, right? So Derrick Lewis is 26 wins, 8 losses, currently on a 1-fight win streak, versus Tai Tuivasa, who's 14-3, currently on a 4-fight winning streak. Now, the thing is, Derrick Lewis on a 1-fight win streak, it's kind of like the fight previously, like Jared Cannoneer's on that 1-fight win streak. Derrick Lewis on a 1-fight win streak. But before that, he lost to Cyril Gane, who everybody was losing to Cyril Gane, and that's why Cyril Gane just fought for the title. So he just won his last fight against the guy who was on like Derrick Lewis just won his last fight against the guy who was on a 4 or 5 fight win streak in Chris Daukaus, and he came and knocked him out in the first round. Like, made it look easy against the up and coming guy that looked like he was maybe going to do something to Derrick Lewis, maybe give him a challenge. Not a chance. Derrick Lewis just completely stopped him. And Tai Tuivasa, I think he's kind of in that situation where Chris Daukaus was, to be honest. He's a little bit better maybe than Chris Daukaus, but Chris Daukaus looked pretty good in his fights too. Like, it's the level of competition these guys are fighting. Once you reach that top 5, you're stepping your game up, and Derrick Lewis is ranked, in my opinion, he's either 1, 2, or 3, probably the 3rd best in the division. Ngannou, Gane, then Derrick Lewis. That's my opinion on that as of right now. So Tai Tuivasa has a big step up here. If he can pull this off, that's potential for a title fight. Like, right, especially if he can come out and like knock out Derrick Lewis. I don't think anybody's actually knocked out Derrick Lewis in his whole career. He's lost by decisions, or he lost by a submission back in the day to Daniel Cormier. So Derrick Lewis is not an easy fight for anybody. People can say whatever they want about his technique, whatever. The guy can fight. He can punch. He can put people to sleep. And that's always a dangerous fighter. Tai Tuivasa, same thing. Dangerous guy. Can sleep people. Put them to sleep, no problem. So even though Tai Tuivasa has a better win streak right now, it's the guys that he's fought. I don't think he's fought that same level quite yet. Derrick Lewis, I'm going to pick him to win by KO in this fight. Somebody's getting knocked out, for sure. I'd be shocked if this one goes to decision. Unless they're just so worried about knocking each other out that it becomes like a super boring fight and they're afraid to engage with each other. I either see it being like that, maybe going to decision. If it doesn't, if they engage with each other, somebody's getting knocked cold. I'm telling you that right now. And I'm picking Derrick Lewis to do it. Okay, so then we're on to the main event of the evening. Middleweight championship bout against the champ, Israel Adesanya, versus the challenger, Robert Whittaker. Israel Adesanya's 21 wins, 1 loss, and he's fighting Robert Whittaker, who's 23 wins with 5 losses. Now, the interesting thing about this fight, it's a rematch. Rematches are always great. Robert Whittaker lost his title to Izzy. Before that, Robert Whittaker had the title for a while. He was the champ. Like, a few more fights, if he would have beat Adesanya, beat a few more fights, we would have been talking about him being one of the best fighters, right? One of the GOATs. So it's always hard at middleweight to take that GOAT status, obviously, because Anderson Silva had it, and I think he had like 11 successful title defenses in his prime. It's going to be hard to top that for anybody. And he was an amazing striker as well, just like these guys. Israel Adesanya took the belt from him, and one thing I love about Israel Adesanya is he isn't afraid to fight the best challengers. He doesn't shy away from the challenge. He went up and fought Jan at 205. Before that, nobody wanted to fight Yoel Romero. And he knew Yoel Romero was, even though Yoel was on a couple split decision losses, which he probably honestly should have won. Like, I'm a huge Yoel Romero fan. Israel Adesanya knew, unless he beat Yoel Romero in that division at the time, people were always going to say, well, you haven't fought Yoel yet. You haven't fought Yoel yet. Because he is a dangerous fighter. Nobody wants to fight Yoel Romero. He's a nightmare to fight. And he called him out, which was nice. He gave him a title shot even though Yoel was coming off of a loss. And I completely agree with that. Like, it's weird because those losses were like split decisions. I didn't even see those losses as losses in Yoel's fight. Actually, the one fight Yoel had with Whittaker, he lost by split decision. I think Romero won that fight. So it was nice that Izzy called him out. Izzy's always looking for the toughest fight. And then Whittaker has been on a few fight win streak, like I think 3-4 fight win streak now. So Adesanya was like, let's go. Like, he wants to take him on, which I respect a lot. Thing is, I'm more of a Robert Whittaker fan. I love Izzy's striking style. I just like who Robert Whittaker is. I like his striking style as well. I think their first fight, he rushed way too much. He was doing great in the first round until he got dropped at the end of the round. It's almost like he didn't respect Israel Adesanya enough as a challenger. He rushed it way too much, blitzed him way too quickly. He wasn't patient enough, which guy like Izzy, you have to fight really strategic because that's how he's fighting you. So, yeah, it might not make for the most exciting fight to the casual fan, but for the hardcore fans, they understand it. The people that train and fight or whatever, they understand it. Right? It's like a chess match in there. It's not just a fight, a brawl, right? So, Robert Whittaker has been on a tear lately. He's looked amazing. Adesanya has looked great too. The thing is, Adesanya's last fight he fought Marvin Vettori, I believe. Marvin Vettori was able to get him down in one of the rounds, but Adesanya pretty much dominated him the rest of the fight, chalked up his leg. Vettori's tough, so he kept pushing forward, but ultimately Adesanya outpointed him the whole fight. Now, it's a tough fight. If Robert Whittaker stays calm and patient and picks his shots and doesn't rush in like he did in the first fight, I could see him winning this fight. He just has to fight smarter. He can't throw single shots. He's got to use volume. Yeah, I think Izzy's going to have a reach advantage, so he's got to get in and get out. He can't stay in the pocket. He can't stay in Izzy's range and just let him stop once he actually throws his strikes to get hit after. Now, Israel Adesanya has a good chance of winning this fight too. This one's a coin flip as well. I have a good feeling about Whittaker. He seems really motivated to get his title back. I think the time off for him did him well, just to kind of reset his mind, see if he really wanted to do this for a living. And yeah, I think he's going to come. He has a different motivation. It's just something about it this time. So I think it's going to be a war this time. I don't think it's going to be a easy knockout. I could see a late knockout maybe from just somebody getting exhausted, but I think both these guys' preparation is going to be really good. Going to be really competitive, and I see I'm going to pick Robert Whittaker to win by decision, but it could go either way, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoy the fights this Saturday. It's going to be an amazing fight card. I can't wait for it. I'm always looking forward to UFC fight cards or any MMA cards pretty much. So if you guys have your picks, leave them in the comments. Like it, share it, subscribe. That'd be great. Thank you.